As a point of law, it's Mr. Herschel's contention that he is not guilty of the charge of extortion for taking money from citizens subsequent to their arrest.
No.
He was responsibly taking that money as an agent of the state, Your Honor.
You didn't eat your lunch, Mrs. Howell.
Yeah, I didn't feel well.
Then you really should eat dinner. Your medication
Please don't
isn't...
make me ask you again, Michael. Just take away the smell of it. It's making me ill.
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't want to play the game right, don't bother! Get the grass a rest! Shame, shame. The worst!
The worst?
Despicable! They'll never learn. To play this game is to delight in the insults.
To keep this efficient, I'll be calling out shareholders, starting with the largest first.
So I can just take this to the bank?
Yes, that's still how checks work. A few steps towards this altar, and you will find rest. People here still have doubts. They're simple people. When you don't come forward to accept, to admit, it's uncomfortable.
Move! You gotta move! Come on!
Welcome, everyone, to another podcast. You will not believe who we have on the show today. Aaron Marcus. He's not just an actor. He's a mentor, an author, and an industry guide for countless aspiring performers looking to carve out their own paths in entertainment. Oh, this is incredible. With over 1,275 bookings in film, television, commercial modeling, and voiceover work, Aaron has built a career spanning 40 plus years, working alongside some of the most respected professionals in the business. You may recognize him from A Man Called Otto, where he shared a scene with Tom Hanks, or his recurring role on House of Cards. But what truly sets Aaron apart is his dedication to educating and uplifting fellow actors and models. He started his journey with no formal training, no agent, which is incredible, no connections, yet through perseverance, trial, and error, he cracked the code to success. Now he shares everything he learned to help others avoid common pitfalls and achieve their dreams. Aaron has conducted over 800 workshops on 3 continents, written one of the most respected industry guidebooks, How to Become a Successful Actor and Model, which we're going to discuss, and mentors aspiring talents through private virtual coaching. Whether you're brand new to acting or the experienced performer looking to refine your approach, his insights provide a roadmap for booking jobs and navigating industry with confidence. Welcome, Aaron, to the show. We're so excited to speak with you.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for all those kind words. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to meet you. I'd like to ask you, let's go back to the beginning. Like, what was your first acting job and how did it shape your understanding of the industry?
That's a good question. So my very first job was a commercial modeling job. And for people who might not be that familiar with commercial modeling, typically, and it was that way for me as well, as soon as I heard model, I'm thinking of fashion models. And what I eventually learned is that there's a whole other world of modeling out there that has nothing to do with fashion. And it's called commercial modeling. These are the sometimes really handsome, which I'm not, really beautiful, which I'm not, people that you see in magazine, newspaper ads, billboards, posters on sides of buses and things like that. And just regular looking people like me. And unlike the fashion industry, there are no age restrictions, no height restrictions, no weight restrictions. They need all different types of people. I've worked with infants who were like 2 months old. I worked with people in their 80s and everywhere in between. So the very first job I had was a commercial modeling job, which I was really happy about because there were no lines that you have to memorize. And early in my career, I didn't know what I was doing. So that made it much easier. And I was supposed to be this uptight musician at an airport holding a cello case. And I think it was some kind of insurance. I don't even remember. But yeah, that was my very, very first job.
That's amazing. Wow. Were you nervous when you first started?
Yeah. And And after 40 years, sometimes I still am very nervous. It depends on the job. It depends on who I'm working with. It depends on the dialogue. It depends on if I got a phone call 11 o'clock the night before. Hey, we just changed, your script, changed the sides, and now I'm relearning things. So yeah, sometimes I still get nervous. Now, nobody would ever know it, but I definitely feel it. And if you want me to just take a second here, I think there's a misconception about nervousness, and I do. Gosh, I do like an entire workshop just on nervousness. But a short version is I know that most of the time people try to get rid of their nervousness, and everybody will tell you, "Hey, I've heard you practice this a million times. You're fine. You sound great. Just go up there and do it. You'll be okay." Well, see, I think it's actually good to have some nerves running through your body. When it happens to me, I can feel that energy. I can feel those synapses firing. Now, you don't want it to hurt your performance in a negative way, but I do like accepting it and owning up to it to myself. And I think I actually have a better performance when I'm feeling a little bit nervous. So there are ways of actually harnessing that energy and using it to your advantage.
Yeah, and when you're actually in front of a camera, you're going to make sure you know that you're going to put on your best performance because you don't know how many people during the time that the film is being shown over the next 20, 30 years, that how many people are going to be watching you. If they would know that you're nervous, they're going to think that must have been the most nervous actor ever. Or unless it's part of this script where you play a character who's nervous, you can be nervous as much as you want. If you want.
that that can make life a little bit easier,
Yeah.
but and it's funny how just some things can just trigger it. You never know. And so for those people, and like, and this, I'm talking about it from an acting perspective, but if you're a musician as well, all of a sudden you're getting up there and you've practiced the piece and you get up on stage and all of a sudden you see somebody in the audience and you start freaking out. I mean, it can happen to anybody. And that's why it's really helpful just to learn some techniques of ways of, like I said before, of using your nervousness to your advantage.
Yeah. When you first were starting out as an actor, what was the biggest obstacles that you faced?
Ah, there were a lot. Number one, I didn't know what I was doing, and I don't know how many people are going to know this guy. Well, he passed away. His name was Frank Zappa. A really good musician, really interesting guy, very talented guy. I
Mm.
really liked especially his earlier works. And I'll never forget something. It was a quote from him. People were asking him about practicing before recording an album, and he would say what he'd like to do is he would like to go, and it was Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. He would like to go into the studio, record everything, and then practice it later. So, is probably the hardest thing was I didn't have any technique. I had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't done any acting before my life except for one play in high school. And so what I had, probably the biggest obstacle, was just trying to figure out and learn what I need to do. I was going on instincts, and that got me so far, but I knew fairly quickly that if I really wanted to make a go at this and be successful and feel good about what I'm doing, I better start studying. And so then I went back and I started taking classes and started studying with people privately and started getting mentored and coached. And that really made a tremendous difference. So that way, if I'm, about to do a scene and I'm just not feeling it, because I'm not able to tap into whatever I need to tap. Now all of a sudden, oh, there are techniques that you can actually use to help that. So that was probably the biggest obstacle of just not having any kind of training at all.
Are there any parts that you would not undertake?
Ooh, that's interesting. Yes. Now, out of almost 1,300 jobs, I think there have been about 5 or 6, and I'll tell you. Actually, I'll tell you two of them that come to mind. One was a great ad campaign. It was a commercial modeling job. This was going to be on billboards across the country. Would have been financially good, have been interesting exposure. I hoped it was a very successful campaign, and I didn't want to do it. The reason why I didn't want to do it was because the concept of this ad was kids have to be really careful.
Hmm.
And even when you see a nice, friendly kind of guy like me, and it was years ago, so I looked much younger. I looked like, everybody's dad. You got to be really careful because there are some dangerous people out there. And look, I realize, when somebody's doing a commercial modeling ad or a TV show, I mean, Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs really doesn't need people, and people understand that it's a character. And I really didn't think that all of a sudden my children's friends would start thinking, "Uh-oh, I better not go over their house because his dad does bad things." But my concern was at that time period I was getting a number of bookings as the young dad, and I thought that could negatively impact my booking because if well, when Toys R Us was around or Parents Magazine, even though they know I'm not this horrific person who does horrible things to kids, they might not want to hire me in an ad campaign with kids. So that was one that I remember. Another one, and I don't like to turn work down, but sometimes you've got to take a stand, or at least for me. And this was a political spot. Now, I could do a TV political spot for somebody I might not agree with and have a different philosophy with, and that's fine. And look, I have some really good friends who have very different feelings about politics than me, and I still like them very much. This one I couldn't do. This was some politician out in the Midwest, and essentially he was saying there are certain people who shouldn't be allowed in Congress or in the Senate. And I was thinking, this is just outrageous to me. I will not do anything in my power to try to help this person get elected. I was so offended. I was a guy on the street saying, "Oh yeah, this guy's great, and I agree with him." I did not want to be a part of that thing. So I thanked the agent for thinking of me, and it's tricky as far as turning it down. Depending on my relationship with the agent, if I don't have much of a relationship, because I have multiple agents in different markets, I might just say, "Thank you very much. I'm just not available." I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into explanations and all that kind of stuff. If it's somebody who I do have a relationship with, yeah, then I might say, I just can't do it. I just do not want to do it. I appreciate you thinking of me. I'm going to have to say no. So, yeah, there have been some, but very, very few.
I love your ethics. I love the way you think. Like I talked to an actor, and he said that he played anywhere from those creepy guys that do stuff for children, and all these other things. And he said it like it was just a job to him. He got a paycheck. For me, if I was an actor, I wouldn't play. No offense, but I wouldn't play someone who likes the same sex. I wouldn't play anybody who's a serial killer because I don't want people to think there he is. There's a serial killer for them. I want to be known as an actor and a professional one. I don't want to be known as a particular part. I'm pretty sure Anthony Hopkins had people coming up to him and go, "Hey," all the time.
Fava beans.
Probably,
Hey,
yeah.
but you know what? I tell you, see, not that I could have pulled that particular role off. I mean, he's just out of this world. Um, I do remember actually there was an independent film, and I played a teacher, and you don't see anything, but one of the students grows up. He's an adult now, and he comes back to confront me. And I was fine with doing something like that. And I hear what you're saying. I get it. Um, but hopefully, if people do enough things and they do enough, different types of roles, people get it. Because when you see somebody in a movie, you understand that that's not who that person is. Just like when you see somebody and you really like them, they just seem like they're always taking on these really great guy kind of roles and really friendly, and then you meet them in person and it's a very different kind of situation. So you can't really tell what a person is like just because you see them, and certainly not because of the role. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And look, and I think it's really important for everybody to have their own standards. Just like I know some people who will not be in projects if there's nudity involved
Mm.
in the scene. Some people won't do it if there's cursing in the scene. And, look, I think it's really important for everybody to know understand their morals. Don't break it. If it's something you feel uncomfortable with, if it's something that's going to haunt you, something that you're going to think about 2 years later and think, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done, don't do it. You know, do what you think is right for you. And I think that's really important. And I can tell you, if you're concerned, and it's easy to have this concern, oh, my agent's going to drop me if I turn this down.
Mm.
And that's a possibility. But you know what? If an agent doesn't understand that this is your life, then find another agent.
I know you're talking about nudity there. You ever seen the movie Notting Hill with Hugh Grant and Julia
Oh,
Roberts?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
remember the scene where she's doing like the script thing with William Thacker and whatever, and she talks about nudity clauses and stuff like that. Are there nudity clauses for males because are they only just for females?
Um, it's never been offered to me, so I can't say for sure, but I would assume that if there's a scene and there's nudity, then depending on how powerful the actor is, how much they need this actor in the scene, that they will work around it. I mean, they might have body doubles, just to handle that situation. And there's a new thing. Oh, and it's not called intimacy something. There's a new job that people have if there's a scene where there's intimacy, and they walk the actors through the scene, and it's a well choreographed kind of project. And yeah, I mean, sometimes actors will say, "I need a close set. I only need the essentials." On the set, and that will make things much more comfortable for people. The only time I ever had a it's just a funny comparison. The only time I ever had a close set on a project, there was a TV show a number of years ago called Gotham,
Mm-hmm.
and th- there was a scene where it's a long story. I don't want to go into the whole story, but the short version is I get tasered. I'm getting kidnapped, and then this evil doctor is going to take out something in my brain and start creating these monsters from it and stuff like that. So I get tasered. I'm tied up in this warehouse, and because my character has a fear of pigs, and that's what's going to create this some kind of system throughout my body, and the fear is going to be jumping. That's when they want to extract stuff from me. So they were going to release these hogs to come after me in the scene. So what they actually did was, and I spoke with the trainer of the hogs, and they were really very interesting animals. The guy, what they did was first of all, they cleared the set except for the essential people. And I'm sitting in a chair and I'm handcuffed, I'm tied up, I'm unconscious. And the guy said to me, he said, "Look, I just want to let you know." And these hogs were gigantic. There were hundreds of pounds each one. He said, "Look, I just want to let you know, you're going to be seated in this chair. We're going to put all this feed right by your shoes. So when the hogs come in, they're going to come charging at you." Because don't worry, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to bite you. They just want to go after the food. So you might feel them push your chair around because they're having this frantic meal next to you. So for that, they had the director was sitting outside watching a monitor. The camera person was in there, the sound person, but pretty much everybody else was out of the room. So anyhow, that's the only time I had a close set. But that is something you can always ask for as well. But if that's something that's of concern for you, ask for a body double and see if they can swing that.
Yeah, I actually heard about a lot of actors and celebrities. I won't name names who are hard to work with, difficult to work with. They want this, they want that. Musicians are like that too. In all your 1,200 auditions and movies and stuff that you did, the part where you had to cry, how was that easy for you? Was that hard for you?
You know, crying is a technique, and there are a number of different ways to do it. Sometimes if you're able to tap into a really tough situation, then that will bring it out. But one thing that's interesting, and a lot of people don't think about it this way, I have found, and I'm not saying you shouldn't cry in certain situations, but what I find is that quite often when there's a scene where it would make sense that you're crying, and let's say there's a close up shot of you, instead of having the tears flowing, what gets me more as an audience member watching is when you can see the person fighting back the tears.
Mm.
That is powerful.
Wow.
And so, once again, it depends on the scene. And there's some people who just do it mechanically, where they literally will take an onion or some kind of like menthol, have it in their pocket, and they put their hands in their pocket and they go like this. And then all of a sudden the tears will just start flowing. Whatever works for you. Everybody has different techniques. In a previous life, I was a classical guitarist. And it was really interesting. The people at this place where I studied, there was a certain method that I studied, and there was a guy named Aaron. Oh my goodness, I just forgot his last name. Sorry about that. Great guitar teacher. He wrote all these books and stuff, and he had a very specific technique. And I remember we went out to listen to another classical guitarist one night, and this guy was phenomenal. And people were saying, because they would say, what did you think? I said, oh, the guy was great. They said, yeah, he sounded okay. But did you see his wrist? It was kind of bent to the side. It wasn't up. And I'm going, who cares? What difference does it make what kind of technique you use? Did it move you? Did it mean something to you? Did you feel something? And I feel the same way about acting. Yes, there are many, many different approaches that people take. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. Some people say, just read the words. The words are there. Some people are method actors where they, get much, much more deeply involved and go into a whole history of the character from their time of birth up. Whatever works for you, as long as you're producing something great, that's what you should do.
So you gave up classical guitarist just to be an actor, or do you do that on the side?
No, 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 no. I haven't picked up a guitar in so many years.
Oh
The
wow.
the short version is, I dropped out of school. I started performing with my brother, who was a jazz guitarist, and we wrote songs that had a pop, jazz, classical feel.
Hmm.
And things were going great. We're doing college tours. We're working as an opening act. And my brother decided he didn't like performing
Hmm.
and he didn't like traveling, going out on tour. And that's not really helpful for a musician. So he gave me a year's notice. And it's a long story, but the short version is that I wound up meeting an actor. He told me what he did. And I thought, wow, that sounds like fun. And so I got started, and I was doing it part time when I went back to school because I was going to study for something else.
Hmm.
And after 2 years of acting, just, once again, as a way to make money to survive while I was in college, I was enjoying it so much, I decided not to become a physical therapist and try acting out for 1 year full time just to see what happens and see what it's like. Is it something that I can stomach? Which I thought that I could because I was a musician for 7 years. So I think I could, handle that part. But could I work? I didn't know. And that's, it turned into 40 years.
Yeah, and in those 7 years you were a musician playing. Like, chances now you could literally be hired on as an actor to play like someone who's a musician in a movie. Your classic guitars or something.
Nah,
No.
I don't think so. I tell you, probably about 10 years ago, I was traveling somewhere and there was a music store and I went in there and I picked up the guitar and I'm starting to play. And it was horrible. It's like I could hear it in my head, but and I wasn't blaming or kicking
Mm.
myself. I used to practice when I was in school. I used to practice 6 hours a day. And then when I was performing, we practiced all the time and performed
Mm.
all the time. So it's like, anything else, you stop doing it, you start losing the skills. And
Mm.
so it was too painful. So who knows? Maybe at some point in my life, maybe I'll pick up a guitar again, but we'll see.
I bet you sounded amazing because I've heard a lot of jazz guitarists and they sound amazing. Now that you're part of Hollywood, I think your SAG after strike as well kind of affected you. I want to talk to you about that one. But what do you think is the biggest misconception aspiring actors have about Hollywood?
Oh boy, there are a lot of them. Well, I can tell you, this an interesting story. So there was a movie, and it was called The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. It was a football movie, and I was just an extra in this thing, but it was the longest job I've ever held in my life. I worked on this movie for 3 months,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed it. Um, Being a union member, you still get paid pretty well, even if you're an extra. But I was a reporter. And once again, just an extra. So I'm standing on the sidelines of a football field. And by the way, for anybody who's thinking about doing extra work, um, I've got a little hint for you. Um, if you are supposed to be a media person, never volunteer to be a camera person because then you got to lug around this big camera all day long. Don't volunteer to be a sound person because then you might have to carry a boom mic. Be a reporter. I had a little notepad and a pen. That was it. That's all I had to carry around. It makes life so much nicer. But to get to your question, there was an extra who got upgraded and he became a referee and they threw him a line. So now all of a sudden, this guy went from being a non union extra to now being able to join the union. He
Wow.
was so excited, he decided, you know what? As soon as this thing wraps, I'm heading to LA. I want to go to Hollywood. And I'm not going to say anything to the guy. It's not my place. But I was thinking, you got to be kidding me, man. It's just not a smart business move. So some of the misconceptions is that there's just so much going on there. You know, you go there, you can become a star. People are going to tell you how handsome you are or beautiful you are, and you're going to make $1 million and you're going to be, you're going to have your own TV series. Look, and I'm not discouraging people from heading there, but you've got to be prepared. You've got to have some experience. You have to have a resume and a headshot that looks right, and you want to find representation and maybe management, depending on your situation, because there are people who had their own TV series, starred in their own movies, and for the next 4 years they can't find a job, and that's who you're going to be auditioning with.
Hmm.
So just make sure it's not this situation where you just go there and the world just opens up. It's a lot of work. You've got to hustle. You've got to make connections. And it's so funny because a lot of times people will say, yeah, it's all about, who you know. That's how this person got the job because that's not really true. It's who knows you. That is what's important. And you've got to be ready so that if you are asked to do an audition or offered something, that you can pull it off because you goof up once or you're not prepared once, even if you went out and studied the next 10 years, people are going to remember, oh, yeah, this person came in, they really weren't very good. So that is a big misconception. And the other thing too is that that everybody's a billionaire out there. Look, there are so many actors, and I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but it's something like I don't know, 80% of actors don't earn enough for insurance, and you have to make like $20,000 a year. And those are union actors. And so it's hard. It's hard getting jobs. And you would mention, the almost 1,300 bookings, but I probably had twice as many auditions. And I know sometimes some actors like to say, "Oh yeah, I've got a 80% booking rate and stuff." Well, if they do, I find that a little hard to believe, unless they've only auditioned, 6 times, and it's very, very hard, even for small roles, even for roles you might only have a word or two to say. People don't understand. There could be, and it will vary from audition to audition and job to job, but there could be anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people submitting headshots and resumes for one particular role. And once again, these aren't exact numbers because it will vary, but it's not uncommon for a casting director to maybe offer 30 people an opportunity to read for
Wow.
the role out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and then out of those 30, one person books it. So I don't even care if you have one word. Congratulations, that is phenomenal because it is so hard. So I guess that's the other part. Answer to your question is that it's a job. It's really hard. And once again, I'm not trying to discourage people because this is something that I have been loving for the last 40 plus years, but it's a difficult job. And first of all, for extra work, you can get a job working on a set, whether it's film or TV, even with no experience at all. Depending on the extra work, if it's something where you're going to be part of a small scene, then they need to make sure that you look right,
Hmm.
to be there. If it's a group of motorcycle gang guys, I'm probably, even if it was just extra work, they're not going to hire me. But or if it's a scene where they need, hundreds of people, so, people just walking down the street, you can do that. And there are a number of different ways of doing it. One thing that you can do is find the film commission website for your particular area and go there. And typically they're going to list projects that are coming to town, and they normally will list the extras casting director. And a lot of times they'll just say, send us a selfie. Even if you have a headshot, they still want to see a selfie because there are some actors that don't look anything like their headshot. So they want to make sure that you do look like that. Or you can try to contact some local casting directors, and you can look them up online and just let them know, like, I'm really interested in doing extra work, and if there are any projects, what can I do to help get that done? And as far as the resume goes, look, I mentor a lot of people who are just getting started, and they have absolutely no acting jobs to put on there. But if your headshot is in the right format and it's interesting and it grabs people's attention, and you've taken classes. So at least that way, the casting directors can see, all right, this person is just getting started. Well, they studied with some good people. I like the classes that they've taken. Yeah, I'm going to give, because the person looks so right for this role, I'm going to give this person an opportunity to read for it. So even if you don't have any bookings, because you have to start at zero. I mean, Brad Pitt started at no jobs at one point. So as long as you have some information that shows people you at least have had some training, that can give you an opportunity to audition.
Now, what's your approach to auditioning? Like, what strategies help actors stand out?
Yeah, and once again, you're asking such good questions. These are full workshops that I do, and I've got videos on my website that people can purchase just on these things. I tell you what, here is probably the most important piece of information I could share with everybody about auditioning. Don't try to book the job. And
Mm.
I know that's somewhat counterintuitive because why am I doing the audition? Because I want to
Hmm.
get the part,
Hmm.
you know? But what I found, and look, and everybody has different approaches. And I also want to make this really clear. Just because this is my approach doesn't mean it's the only way to do things. Some people go into auditions and they want to, they try to manifest things. They see themselves being called up onto the stage for the Academy Awards, and they're accepting it, and they see themselves giving the speech and thanking all these. I tried that once, and it was a disaster for me. And what I find is when I'm not trying to book the job,
Hmm.
and I go into the audition thinking, you know what? It's a Thursday afternoon. I'm getting a chance to play. This is fun. Period. That's it. I'm not trying to book it because honestly, I don't think I'm going to. Not because I think I'm horrible, um, but I understand there are so many factors that go into booking a job and not booking a job. And quite often, it has nothing to do with your skills. Look, most of the people that are coming in to read for a role are really good. And then it comes down to factors that you have absolutely no control over. You're too tall, you're not tall enough. You're too handsome, you're not handsome enough. Your body's in too good a shape, you're not in good enough shape. And I even heard this one from somebody who was working with a casting director, where a woman came in for a callback, meaning they liked her initial audition. Now she's being brought back in because she's really being seriously considered, and everybody is there. The director, producers, writers, everybody's there. She walks out after the audition and everybody's blown away. And they go, wow, she was great. And the director, and it was for a film, so the director is always the main person. And the director said, nah. And he said, well, wait a minute, didn't you think she was amazing? Yeah, she was really good. Why wouldn't you offer her a contract? She wears the same perfume as my ex-wife. I just can't deal with this.
Oh my goodness. Really?
So, so you just never know. So that's why I never expect or try to book the job. My goal is to have a good time, to enjoy myself. And afterwards, my next goal is to analyze it, to think, to say, okay, did I do what I wanted to do in there? If somebody gave me notes, did I
Wow.
follow it? Um, Maybe I did everything I wanted to do, and then I just walk out and go, okay, well, it's good days at work, good day of work, and that's it. And I leave it alone as much as I can. I'm a human. If it's something that's really big, something I really want, sometimes I will think about it a little bit, but I really try to get it out of my mind and just move on to the next one. So for auditioning, don't try to book the job.
That is amazing advice. I never heard of that before. People usually go in for an audition to get the part. But how did you land a role in House of Cards?
You didn't eat your lunch, Mrs. Howell.
Yeah, I didn't feel well.
Then you really should eat dinner. Your
Please
medication
don't
isn't...
make me ask you again, Michael. Just take away the smell of it. It's making me ill.
Yes, ma'am.
You played Michael for 2 episodes. What was that experience like? And Kevin Spacey as well.
Well, first of all, Kevin Spacey wasn't there when I
Oh,
was working there. Didn't have any scenes with Mr.
wow.
Spacey.
Too bad.
Now, what's interesting is actually I worked on 3 episodes.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, they cut my lines out for that 3rd episode,
Hmm.
which from a personal point of view, I'm fine with that. From a business point of view, I'm really disappointed
Hmm.
because then my residuals gets cut by a third.
Oh no.
Because since I got paid for the job of working that day, but you don't get residuals if you were cut out. So, and that's a really interesting story. The short version is this, and this kind of goes along with the whole auditioning process. I auditioned for House of Cards 14 times over 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
And sometimes they would say, hey, loved it. Are you available these dates? And then they narrowed it down to a couple of people, didn't book it. Sometimes I would get callbacks. They want me to read again, didn't book it. And the 15th audition, and by the way, on a little bit of a side note, and I think this, I just want to throw this out there so people can learn from it. Sometimes actors get really angry and frustrated if they get called in 2 or 3 times with a casting director, whether it's for the same role or something different, and they don't book it, and they start getting angry and they start thinking, why am I wasting my time? This casting director doesn't want me. I've already auditioned 3 times.
Mhm.
Apparently it's clear I'm not the right person for this casting director. And what people don't understand is it's just the opposite. No casting director will bring you in a second time unless they really liked what you did. So for my 15th audition, I went in and I asked a question, one question that I truly believe helped get me the role.
Hmm.
And the question was, I'm reading, and she wasn't there, but I'm reading to a character. They had a reader there for me. And I mean, I watched the show, so I was very familiar with it. I wasn't familiar with the character. I'd never seen this character before on the show. And all I know is that um, we're having this dialogue, but I don't know what my relationship is with this person. And the casting director, who knows the script, she said, oh, you work for her. I went, oh,
Oh.
okay. And that completely changed the way I did my read. And as it turns out, I was her caretaker slash butler, and that's how I read it. And I don't think it was a coincidence that that one got me a recurring role, and that was my 15th audition over 2 years.
Oh wow. Yeah, what's
And
a
that was and that was an amazing experience, getting a chance to work with Ellen Burstyn, and
oh,
she's an Academy Award-winning actor. Um, Love spending time with her, and I don't mind sharing this either. Uh, it's so funny. So I I know I'm kind of jumping. I do these quick tip videos, and in every quick tip video that I do, it's up on my YouTube channel. I always have a bonus video. And the one that's coming out next week, well, I don't know when this is going to go live, but anyhow, in this quick tip video, it's going to be the secrets to my method of working with A-list actors. And so something that I specifically did with Ellen Burstyn is because I work for her, I take care of her, I've been with her for many years. I wanted to make sure that I spent some time with her so I could really feel this warmth towards her. And
mm,
I would ask her lots of questions. Really interesting person, unbelievably talented, and that helped me so much during the shooting. And I can also tell you that Robin Wright, who was the daughter of Ellen Burstyn and was Kevin Spacey's wife, and so she's the president's wife,
mhm,
uh, we had some conflicts
mm.
because she had some issues with her mom, and I'm taking care of her mother, and I'm very, very protective. And it was this fine line. It was really interesting. Of look, I can't be nasty to the president's wife. On the other hand, I didn't want her to just roll over her mom because I really like her. So it was a very, very interesting character, and I was so fortunate to get a chance to do that.
So how did you prepare for that role, like mentally, physically, emotionally, so that you become Michael and not
You
Aaron
know,
pretending to be a character?
yeah. Yeah, well, probably the biggest thing was spending time with Ellen Burstyn and just feeling this warmth for her and wanting to do things for her. And I wanted to take
Mm.
care of her. And I felt like that was my job. My job was to take care of this woman because I really cared about her deeply. And then I just let the words go. I just spoke the words, and it felt right to me.
But when you said you auditioned for House of Cards 15 times, doesn't mean that 15 times in one shot. It was like 15 times over a matter of
Over 2 years.
two
Over
years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, what do you like? I know when you're saying that one casting director was said, "Well, I don't want to hire her because she smelled like my ex-wife's perfume." Um, what do you think of some of the key traits that casting directors look for in performers? Like, why would they want you and not some? I don't want to say I don't want to be mean,
Well,
but
just anybody
some hot
else.
30-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, just look, a lot of times you don't know. And that's also part of the auditioning process. Never, ever, ever try to figure out what they're looking for, because quite often they don't know. And what you want to do as an actor, and that's one of the gifts of being an actor, that's one of the fun parts of playing, is that you make your own decisions. It might be wrong. You might be taking the character in the wrong direction because quite often, especially for smaller roles, we're not sent the entire script where we can really watch and see what's going on with everything. We might get a page or 5 pages or 4 pages, and we have to make some very specific decisions based on our analysis of what's going on. And once again, it might be right, it might not be right. But here's the thing: if you physically look right for the part, and you give an interesting read, even if it's not where that character should be going, that should be enough for the casting director to either give you notes to help guide you or bring you back for a callback where then they will give you some additional notes. And once again, I know these are like whole workshop things. Just a little bit of a side note again. If you ever do get a callback on a project for film, TV, or even TV commercial, doesn't matter. Just two things. Um, that I've learned over the years. Number one, read it the same way. Sometimes actors, they want to show off and they want to show the, casting director and everybody, you know what? I'm so talented. I read it this way for the audition, but I tell you what, for the callback, I'm going to give you a completely different read just to show you my range. Don't
Mm.
ever, 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 ever do that because they're bringing you back because they liked what you did. Give it to them again. And the second thing is look the same. Sometimes people like to change their hairstyle, change different wardrobe. Once
Mm.
again, look the same way because that's why they're bringing you back.
Yeah, did you ever hear the story about how Jerry Mathers got the part of as the Beaver?
No,
Well, when they had him auditioning in front of the casting directors, whatever, he always was mentioning, "Well, can, can I go to my Boy Scouts now? I got a Boy Scouts meeting." Really? But you're auditioning? I know, but I got to. So they hired him because of that.
that's interesting. Yeah, and that seems to make sense for that character and
Yeah.
the sweet, sweet little kid and very honest. And oh, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. So you're mentioning about commercial modeling. Like, how does commercial modeling differ from traditional acting?
So, really, for me, the only difference is I don't have lines.
Mm.
So, I still use the same techniques of feeling certain emotions, bringing back experiences in my life, but then I have to portray it purely through my eyes
Mm.
and my body without and showing that without any words at all. And so that's why it's always a little surprising if it's a photographer I've never worked with, because what I do, and I know it's a little bit different than what most people do. So if you're the photographer and we're about to do the shot, I might just say, "Oh, can I just have a second?" And my body's in the right position. I will slightly turn away. I will think of something, say a key word that brings the emotion, and boom, then I'll bring it either to the camera or wherever they want me to
Mm.
look. Then I look away, I do the same thing, and I just keep repeating this dance all day long. And because what happens is what I found was if I just stared straight the entire time and the photographer was taking millions of pictures, I kind of look like a model. I look stiff. I look like plastic. There's just no life going on there. So I always like to recharge my batteries, look away, and then come back, and look away and come back. And what also surprises people, I remember this one time. It was a lottery commercial. I think it was for Virginia Lottery, and I think I won, I don't know, $250,000 in this thing. And I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to break anybody's ears. But for the go-see, which is the audition, I looked away. I just said, "Oh, can I have a second?" He said, "Sure." I looked away, and I did what I needed to do mentally. And then when I looked up, I screamed like, "Wow!" And I just like screamed at the top of my lungs. And the photographer's like sitting right in front of me, and so he kind of like jumped back, and he was a little bit shocked. But it worked, and I wound up getting the job because it was real. This guy was really excited. So it's the same. I use very, very similar techniques, and I love doing commercial print work.
When you're part of when you become from a non-union member to union member, you become a member of SAG and AFTRA, and then when you get the AFTA, I think AFTRA or ACTRA, whatever, then you can say a word or a line. Is that considered voice work? Do you get the same amount of money for voice work as you would as a voice actor, or it's totally different?
Okay, so we're talking about a couple of different things here. So in Canada, the actors union is called ACTRA,
Okay,
ACTRA,
I see.
and in the States it's SAG-AFTRA.
All right.
So typically, um, if you're doing film and television, you have to say a word in order to be considered a principal.
Mm.
Uh, you could have the camera like right up in your face. If you're an extra and you are reacting and it's capturing that, if you don't say a word, you're still an extra. So they might call it a featured extra, but it doesn't mean any more money or anything. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule where, like you had mentioned in A Man Called Otto. Now, I was kind of groaning when
Move! You gotta move! Come on!
I hit face first on the train tracks. But there were no I mean, I was saying a couple things, but it wasn't there was nothing written out for me, and I don't think you hear it in the movie at all because there's a train coming, and so
Hmm.
it drowns out anything that I was saying. So there are exceptions where you can be a principal without lines. Um, but yeah, I mean, there is something for voiceover actors, and you're right. There used to be two separate unions. There used to be AFTRA, which was mostly like TV news people, reporters, voiceover work, radio spot people, and then there was SAG. But we merged many years ago, so now it's all the same. And yes, there are different pay rates depending on whether you're on camera or off camera.
Yeah, you're talking about Man Called Otto. What a movie! Oh, I love that movie so much. Especially the ending was fantastic.
It
What was
was.
it like working with Tom Hanks? I'm dying to know, and in my audience as well.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, earlier, sometimes, you know, you kind of have this basic idea of what you think the person is really like from watching other movies that this person was in. And so for someone like Tom Hanks, you have this feeling, just this really nice person. He was even nicer.
Mm.
This guy was so warm, he was generous, he was friendly. And look, I have no problems at all if there's a principal actor and he just want or she wants to just stay off onto the side, doesn't want to be around the extras, doesn't want to be with the, co-stars and things like that. I don't have any problem with that. Maybe it's a tough scene, maybe they're still working out dialogue. Who knows? Somebody's at work. Let them be. It doesn't mean they're not nice, you know. For Tom Hanks, he was walking over to all the extras because there are a lot of people on the platform in the
Mm.
scene that I was in, and he's
Mhm.
shaking their hands. Thank you so much. I know it's cold out here; it's a little uncomfortable. Really
Wow.
appreciate it. And his wife as well, Rita Wilson, and she was one of the producers. I think she wrote some music for the movie as well. She was so kind. I remember I had to come back and reshoot something after I did the fall onto the train tracks, and she walked over and she said, "Hey, Aaron, you okay? Just wanted to make sure you're feeling all right." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much."
Wow.
And I tell you, but something that Tom Hanks said that I'd like to share with people because
Mhm.
it was kind of like a life changing statement. Whenever you're on a movie set, I've always found that who's ever at the very, very top, whatever they are like, it filters down to everybody. If you have a director who's just nasty, the first assistant director is probably going to be, or curmudgeon, the second, the PAs, everybody, it's just going to be an unhappy atmosphere. And just the opposite is true. And this set was so wonderful. Um, Everybody was so kind and generous and nice, and I would have done anything for those people. And look, it was a very uncomfortable scene, falling off a train. I've never done anything like that before. And they even had a stunt double there for me,
Oh,
who
wow.
did the stunt twice because they told me when I got hired, you're going to have a stunt double. I said, great, because I've never done that kind of stunt before in my life. And the guy did it a couple times, and then later in the day, they said, "Hey, would you mind? Would you be comfortable giving it a try?" And so I had a meeting with the stunt coordinator, and I had to very quickly learn how to fall 8 feet from a platform. And here I am. I'm lying, after I hit the pillows or the cushions. Now I'm lying on the train tracks, cold steel. They made snow. It's cold outside, and I'm all wet, and I didn't care because when I thanked Tom Hanks for creating such a warm atmosphere and such a nice day or days for us, and he looked at me and he was like almost surprised, and he said, "Aaron, hey, we're all on the same team here. We're all doing one thing. We're trying to make something great."
Wow.
I looked at him. I thought, he's right. That's what we're all doing here. We're all working together to try to make something great. And I love that comment. And yeah, he was just phenomenal.
What do you think is the biggest mistake actors make when trying to break into the industry? Do you think they're going to be, oh, I'm going to be working with these big stars, maybe Clint Eastwood and I? Like, what do you think is the biggest mistakes? Like, what was your biggest mistake that?
Yeah, I think this wasn't mine, but I think the biggest mistake is that things are just going to be given to you, that things are just going to happen overnight. And I realize we do live in an age where, especially like with reality, and I'm not putting them down or anything, but just it is what it is. Reality shows today, you can have, not that much experience, be on a reality show and think that you're going to become a star overnight.
Hmm.
And what I've learned is that, a lot of these people who do, maybe they win, The Voice or something. Um, there are some exceptions, but most of those people don't have long careers. You get a lot of notoriety very quickly, but we're in a TikTok world where people can have success very fast. And the acting world, and it's looks the same with music as well. Look, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So when you're getting started, I mean, personally, my suggestion would be don't be thinking that things are going to happen overnight for you. It's going to take time. I remember once again, this is decades ago, and I was working as an extra on a set with, oh my goodness, I can picture him. Yeah, who's in Yellowstone?
Oh,
Uh,
that.
Nick, no, no,
Oh my God.
something with a K. His name begins with a K. Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I remember, and he was hanging out with the extras, and we were just talking and stuff. And I didn't know who this guy was. He seemed like a really nice guy. And I remember he said, you know what? Yeah, I mean, this is like the biggest thing I've ever done. It's either I've got another movie coming up, or he just wrapped another movie, and then this was his, next big thing. And he said, a lot of people are looking at me like I'm this overnight sensation. He said, I've been knocking around LA for 10 years. And all of a sudden, things are really starting to kick in for me. So, getting back to your really, really good question is it takes time. We are running a business, and you've got to do things very methodically, and thinking that you're going to be an overnight star and working with famous people. Look, maybe it will happen. Who knows? Maybe you'll go to New York, and your first audition, you'll have your own, movie or something. I don't know. That's possible, but I wouldn't bet on it. And so enjoy the process and learn as much as you can and make connections and learn from people and ask questions. And so, anyhow, give it time.
That's very interesting. When you were in the show Do No Harm, TV series, you were Dr. Stephen Leopold. Did you have to actually consult doctors, the lingo and everything, or how did you do that part?
So, and by the way, I'm laughing because it was such a shame. That TV show set a record for being the fastest show ever to be canceled from,
Oh,
and I think from any television station, but I think it was NBC. I think it was NBC. 2 episodes, they canceled it, and I was in the fourth episode. And I remember I watched the first episode, and I turned to my wife. I said, "I kind of hope they make it to episode 4." I was just kind of kidding, but and I think they did wind up showing it during reruns,
mm.
or showing the rest of it during the summer when other shows were on hiatus. But well, I tell you, and this is why I think it's so important for anybody going into acting to learn as much as you can about other things. So I remember I mentioned to you I was going to be a physical therapist,
Hmm.
and I took all of my science classes to begin to apply to physical therapy school. So it's not
Hmm.
like I was in PT school already. So I had already gone through anatomy, and I took, biology, and I took 2 chemistry classes and things. So I was pretty familiar with that terminology, and I had volunteered at an orthopedic hospital just to kind of learn more about what PT work was all about. But yeah, sometimes if something comes up, I do have to ask and do some research. And I have, people in my family I could contact and say, how do you pronounce, is this how you pronounce it? And what exactly does this thing do? Does this make sense? So, but look, you absolutely need to know what things mean when
Hmm.
you're auditioning, how to pronounce things so that you can use the words properly.
What's the most unexpected lesson you've learned on the set?
Ah, boy. So, I remember one time there was a TV show many years ago. It was a really good show. It was called The West Wing, and
Loved it.
I'll never forget. I had to. We worked much longer than we were planning to, and I think it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm rushing out because I had to catch a flight. I think I was doing workshops the next day someplace. So I'm rushing out, and I asked one of the um, they're called PAs, and they are production assistants. I said, "Hey, would you mind signing me out? I got to get out of here really quickly." And she said, "Yeah, sure, I'll take care of it." And I just rushed and I went to the airport. And when I got my paycheck, I noticed that I had been clocked out like 2 hours prior to when I actually worked until.
Oh no.
And so, because of the extra, it's a lot of overtime, and then there are night premiums and all that kind of stuff. It was a fair amount of money, and so it took a while, but I had to get the union involved with this, and eventually, I was able to prove, yeah, I was really there 2 hours longer, and I needed to get reimbursed for those hours. So, what I learned from that is, um, number one, you got to take care of yourself. Um, and people sometimes just make mistakes. I don't think that
Wow.
anybody, especially a PA, they're trying to save, you know, $300, whatever it was, for their budget by doing this. People make mistakes, but I've also just learned that you got to follow up. You got to make sure that you've got everything in order. And I'll tell you one other thing too, is as far as mistakes go, and something that I've learned is that and like I would do this anyway, just because that's just how I was brought up.
Hmm.
But especially just from a business point of view, you want to treat everybody that you run into with the utmost respect,
Hmm.
the same kind of respect that you would like to be treated with. And look, sometimes there might be PAs who are running around, and PAs, the production assistants, they get paid the least on a set, except for maybe the non-union extras. But even they might get paid even less. They work harder. They're there before you show up. They're there after you leave. They're checking everybody out. They're running around getting things. They're doing crowd control, make sure people don't walk into the scene who shouldn't be walking. And sometimes I've seen some even just extras treat these people poorly.
Mm.
And the fact of the matter is, just and once again, I think that should never happen. But even from a business point of view, you don't know who that PA is. That PA could be the son or daughter of the director. That PA might be a very skilled director who is learning as much as they can on the set and might be going out and shooting some project that you audition for, or you might want to audition for, and they go, "Oh yeah, I remember this person. This person was not very nice. No, we're not dealing with." Or maybe they're going to become a casting director or a writer. Who knows? So, anyhow, just treat people properly. And if you have a problem, there are ways that you can talk to people to get things resolved without being nasty about it. And I think that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah, be kind. Like I learned a lot of this from watching the Darman series because you never know that the person you're going to try to get hired in a job might be just the CEO of a company testing his staff or something. You never
Yeah.
know. So treat everyone with the utmost respect because you don't know who you're with, right? The How do actors balance creative expression with business strategy?
Oh boy. And I think, you know what? And I think that's one of the downfalls for a lot of really talented actors. I mean, I've spoken with people who've come out of places like Yale Drama School and have gotten masters, at different, at other really high level schools. And they're really talented actors, but they don't know how to run their business.
Hmm.
And I do think, and I wish that was something that was taught more at these schools. And I remember even because I did some college workshops. Most of the workshops that I do were in other kinds of venues, but I've always wanted to do more college workshops, especially at some of the schools. And they've always said, well, we have famous actors, alumni who come in and they'll talk to the actors. So we really don't. And I'm thinking, you know what? A famous actor, look, it's nice to bring in a famous alumni. I think that's a really good recruiting tool, and I think it's very helpful. But those people aren't going to be able to give them the same kind of information that I can because I'm doing stuff on a daily basis. People aren't writing scripts for me. People aren't begging, my agent to have me be in their project. And I've had to learn how to market myself and how to find agents in different areas and how to deal with conflicts and what kind of, like we talked about earlier, what kind of projects do you accept and not. There are a million different business things that you
Mm.
have to think about. And I think it's really important to do both, to have both of those kinds of skills, unless you've got a whole team around you that can handle everything, which I don't. Look, I'm a one person operation and I'm a one man band here. And so, yes, I do have agents in various markets that do go out and submit me for things. And if I book it, they'll negotiate for me and they will send me all the right information. But I do a lot of things on my own, and sometimes even if I book something on my own, I'll still send it through an agent, depending on the situation. Don't have to, but I still do for a whole variety of reasons. And once
Mm.
again, I think those are smart business. Like, let me just give you a quick example. So for House of Cards, perfect example. There was an agent that submitted me a pretty good amount of times, not every time, pretty good amount of times. And the very last time, the casting director, who I already knew at this point because I already read with her so many times, although they did switch casting directors, but I knew them all. And she said, "Hey, I've got an audition. You want to come in and read for it?" I said, "Yeah." And I did tell her. I said, "Look, I just want to let you know if I do book it, I'm going to be sending it through this agent." Didn't have to. I gave up and still do give up a 10% commission fee, even for residuals that I get. And I did it because number one, the agent had submitted me a number of times before. Two, I really
Mm.
like the agent. And even if it's an agent that you don't have that strong of a connection with,
Mm.
just think how important that will be. Here, you're contacting an agent and you're saying, "Hey, I just booked this job. I'd like for you to handle it for me." Well, the next time a project comes up, why wouldn't they be thinking of you on the top of their list? You just made them money, you're being honest with them, and you know that they're going to know that you're bookable, that people like your work, which makes the agent look good. So, I think it's really important to do both. Yes, you have to, have instincts, you have to
Mm.
have technical skills, be creative, but you also really want to learn how to run your business.
What do you think some of the red flags that actors should watch out for when dealing with agents or contracts?
Oh, here we go. That's a whole other workshop we're talking about, Chris. Um, and on my YouTube channel, I even have stuff
Mm.
before you sign a contract, look over these things. Okay, so just a couple of really quick pointers for people. And I've gone to scams, um, and I knew there were scams. I
Really?
just wanted to see, yeah, I just wanted to see how they did it. And so that I can share the information with other people. So
Oh.
one of the things, if somebody is promising you, "Hey, man, Chris, I'm telling you, you've got the look. You're going to be a star. You're going to be making so much money. I want you to buy an island for me as well in the South Pacific. That's how much money you're going to be making." Run, run from those people. Nobody can, with any honesty, can guarantee you anything.
Mm.
Nobody knows when somebody is going to book or not book a job. So that's one thing. If they're asking for upfront money, that would make me very nervous because agents make their living from taking a percentage of
Mhm.
any booking that you get. Now, I don't know how it worked with ACTRA in Canada, but in the States, if an agency is considered a signatory agent, meaning they've signed contracts with the union, they've agreed to abide by union rules, they are not allowed to have classes.
Mm.
Now, there are agents who have me do virtual classes for their talent. I'm fine with doing that. There's a difference between, and so I understand the union's ruling on that. I just have a different take on it. But my feeling is, if an agent says to their talent, "Hey, look, we're bringing somebody in. They're really good workshops. I think it's going to benefit you a lot." Yes, there is a fee for it. If you want to sign up, great. You should, I think you should do that. That's one thing. If they say to you, hey, Chris, look, I want to represent you. You got to take my classes. If you don't take my classes, you're not going to get the information. I can't
Mm,
work with you. So if they are telling you that it's mandatory that you take their classes or they're not going to work with you, that would make me a little bit nervous. Just
mm.
like if they tell you, you have to shoot with my headshot photographer. It's one thing if they say, we're bringing somebody in, the person's great, highly recommend it. But ultimately, what difference does it make who you shoot with as long as the headshot sells you well? So those are a couple things that would make me very, very nervous.
Yeah, I can see why that would make you nervous. So, do you think the entertainment industry differs now compared to when you started?
Um, it's a different world.
Hmm.
It's a different world. I mean, when I first started going to New York, and that was after 4 years of spending time working in small markets in Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia, in Maryland, then moving into like the Philly area. And I started actually with an agent who was a commercial modeling agency,
Mm.
and I thought they were the best commercial modeling agency in New York. Now, right before my time, this wasn't around when I got there. I was a couple of years late for this, but the models would tell me they would go into the agent's office, which doesn't that stuff doesn't really happen much anymore these days. And they would sit in a room, and there was a telephone there for the models. So if they needed to make phone calls, they could do that. And then they would sit there and they would wait for the agent to say, hey, Chris, got a job for you. Why don't you go down the 7th Avenue? And they would just wait. And all of a sudden, a booking would just come in just like that. So that completely changed. I have found that, and it's not just, I think, uh, with the industry. I think it's just in general. I think it's become less personal. We have less contact with people. There are agents I've never even met that
Mm.
I work with. Um, and you get a text, you get an email, here's the audition, and you submit it. If you book it, you'll hear from them. If you don't book it, you don't hear anything. And it's not like I remember one time it was a national television spot, and so there would have been a big deal. And I had like three callbacks,
Wow.
and they were narrowing it down. It was just like, I don't know, three, four people at this point. And I'll never forget, they were going to shoot like in 2 days or something
Mm.
like that. So I contacted the agent, said, hey, and I had to leave a message. Hey, just wanted to find out any updates with this. And I got a text, and it said, "You're released." And I just thought,
Oh no.
you know, look, I don't need a shoulder to cry on. I don't need the agent to be able to hug me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I know so close you'll get in." But, having a little bit of humanity here. Hey, just wanted to let you know they went in another direction. Sorry,
Mm.
we'll look something. Just, instead of two words, you're released. I don't know. It's just so I find that things have gotten just a little bit colder and not as, and personally, I like warm and fuzzy. I know don't always have it. There are plenty of people I work with not that way. So yeah, it is very different. Um, and look, there is more, and I don't like using this word because I don't really believe we have competition, but there are more people who are trying to get the same jobs because you can be living anywhere and submit your audition from anywhere. So there are a lot more people who are able to submit now who, couldn't do that in the past.
I love that you wrote a book and you have a website basically on how to mentor and help people, how to act. What do you think is the most rewarding aspect of helping others in the industry?
Yeah. So yeah, and thanks. Yeah, my book is How to Become a Successful Actor and Model,
Hmm.
and it's great. It's all based on my experiences, and it's your cookbook, and you can find it. I guess. Look, if you're watching this in Canada, even though it's better for me financially, go to my website, howtoactamodel.com, and order it. But I'm telling you, don't, because shipping it to you, it's going to be way too expensive. Just go to Amazon, and you can get it that way. Um, but Wait, I'm sorry, wait a minute. You just asked about the book and the mentoring. I'm sorry. The most satisfying thing. Yeah, so I would say when somebody has some kind of success, whether it's creating a really good headshot, whether it's coming away with a resume that is what industry professionals expect. If you actually get an audition, see, to me, that's winning. Getting the audition. Once again, booking the job, nah, that's out of your hands after the audition. Just
Mhm.
getting the audition is a statement of you're doing things right. So those things get me very excited. And then if you get representation with an agent, well, that's just phenomenal. And then if you book a job,
Mhm.
um, I'm flying high for you. So seeing people learn how to run their business and work in the industry, to me, that gives me a tremendous amount of pleasure because, like you had mentioned, at the very beginning of my career, I had nobody. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't come from a family with industry people. And so everything that I did was trial and error. And it was hard, it was tough. And so I knew early on that if I ever had any kind of success, I'd want to help other people. And so, yeah, I do that. And I say 5 days, 5 days every month. And I do private mentoring. I have an actor career program. And once again, you can read about all the stuff on howtoactamodel.com. And these are just really, really great tools for people. And the other thing two other things I was just going to mention. You can be on my special mailing list. Just go to
Oh
howtoactamodel.com.
yeah, I will.
And you can sign up free there. You'll be on my special mailing list. I send out really helpful information. And on the website, you can also see there's a YouTube icon and Instagram as well. And you can go to YouTube, sign up. I have over 500 free quick tip videos. And it's like your own free library. And it's my way of giving back to the community. And so just click on the link there. And you can also follow me on Instagram. And that link is right there as well. It's just Aaron R for Robert Marcus. And I send out information there as well.
Yeah, that's I mean, when you mentioned that you got a text that said you're released, an
You're
actual
released.
text on your phone, really? That's like a
That's
breakup
all it
text.
was.
It's like that's like a breakup text. You don't break up with someone text. It's saying like your dad died. I'm like, why don't you call me personally and tell me? They'll
Yeah,
say, hey,
yeah,
you're released. Hey, such and such passed away. Oh, okay. Can you call
yeah.
me and tell me, or at least knock on my door and say hi? Sit down. Let's have like that's like a breakup text. I don't believe they did that to you.
It just felt so impersonal, and
Yeah.
once again, I didn't need this whole long thing. Look, most of the things I audition for, I don't book. That's not, but it's just, I don't know, it just felt very impersonal.
Yeah. How do you handle rejection? So, there advice that you have to give actors facing discouragement?
Yeah, and probably the most important thing that I could say about that is don't take it personally. These are all business decisions. You're trying to book a job, you're auditioning, and you don't get it. It's nothing personal. For whatever reason, you weren't right for the part. You're trying to get representation with an agent, they're not interested. It's nothing personal. Look, you're a nice guy. You're still a nice guy. You still have people, that you surround yourself with who love you. They're still going to love you. Your dog doesn't care if you, book the job or not. They're still going to, love you. So, and look, I'm saying it pretty easily and casually now. This is something that took me years. It was painful. It was really
Yeah.
hard. But it's true. These are all, and look, and I'm not saying you don't book the job, don't get upset. If you want to get upset, that's fine. You go out and get yourself some ice cream if that's what's going to do it for you. Whatever you need to make yourself feel better, because we're human. I get it, but it's not a personal statement. And whatever you do, please don't base your self worth on the success that you have
Yeah.
or the lack of success. And that's what I have found that to be true with some people who, you know, they start building up this tremendous popularity and everybody's taking selfies with them and asking, screaming for autographs, and they
Yeah.
just surround themselves with people, who are yes people, and they kind of lose touch with all the people they had in their lives before. And what happens, especially I find with child actors, people who started young, at some point, for most actors, even if they're not child actors, so that fame starts to fade away. And if the only thing that's making you feel good about yourself is your success, you're going to be in trouble. That's going to be a hard place. I'd start setting up dates with psychotherapists right now because it's a hard way to live by doing that. And so make sure that you stay grounded, you stay humble, you're appreciative of what people do, and keep spending time and surround yourself with people who are honest with you, people who are telling you, "Hey, you're acting crazy. You're being a jerk here. Don't
Mhm.
don't do this with people," and have people around you who are willing to be very, very upfront and honest. And I think that's essential.
Yeah, I remember working in a warehouse, and we had a guy working with us named Chris, and he was working with us for a while, and then he told us that he used to be a child actor, and he was in one of the Canadian TV programs. And I said, "Oh, I remember you," but it's like he was a child actor, and then he's just a regular person. Not, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
actors are regular. So, what is Aaron? What do you think is you wish someone had told you when you first started?
Boy, that's a great question. Um, you know, I guess there are a lot of ups and downs in the industry. There are lots of highs and lows.
Mm.
Be prepared for it. Um, and I tell you what, this one thing I wish somebody had told me: no doesn't mean never.
Mm.
That is a powerful. That was a powerful statement because most of the time we are told no. And it's really, really essential that you understand it's no for now, you know, doesn't mean forever. And I think that would have made me feel a little bit more comfortable, um, for all the times that I would hear no and still continue to hear no. But, after doing it for a lot of years, it's gotten a lot easier and I have a different perspective on things and just a different kind of life. And so, anyhow, I think that's really important to understand. And I wish I had heard that early on.
So now that you're where you are after 40 years in acting business, and so SAG after strike, how did that affect you?
Oh, boy. I tell you, I'm still feeling the effects of it.
Mm,
It got resolved,
yeah.
but not only was it our strike, but it was the writer's strike as well. The
Hmm.
writer's strike happened first, which meant we were out of work, pretty much. And then we went on strike as well. And look, I'm really glad we did go on strike. It was important. There were some crazy things that people wanted to do, producers wanted to be able to do with us that we needed to
Hmm.
to take control of. But I can tell you, like for the writers, and I think it's filtered over for us as well. Yes, the writers are getting paid more than they had been, which is really important. The flip side is there are fewer writers in the writer's room. So the main writers, the most well-known and successful writers, they're doing well. But the other people who would generally be brought in, they're not working
Mm.
or working as much. And I don't know, it's just my theory that um, a lot of the shows that are on now, especially on the streaming channels, these companies are finding that when they were on strike, they were still doing pretty well financially, even when they weren't putting out new content. And so it seems like, yes, of course, there's always new content, but it doesn't seem like it's as much, or they don't last as long. There are a lot more miniseries happening, 4 episodes, 6 episodes. So when those writers are done, they're over and now they're out searching for other work. Same for actors as well. So for me, I'm finding that and it's actually, I wouldn't even just say it's just me because I've spoken with other actors as well. It doesn't seem to be as much work out there.
Mm.
as there had been prior to the strike. So, but you know what? They're all look. I've been through. I think this may be my third strike.
Wow.
Um, there's always ups and downs. That's just the way the industry goes, and you have to understand it. And you're just out there paddling, on your board, and sometimes you're going to catch a great wave, and then all of a sudden you drop out, and you hit the bottom of the ocean, and then you wait for another great wave to come in. So that's just how the industry works. And kind of going along with your previous question, it's just important to have that perspective and understand that.
Yeah, one of the issues of the actual strike was body scanning. What are your thoughts of AI body scanning? Would you want your body scanned and you'd be acting alongside Jimmy Stewart or something?
Man, and you're right. That was what they were doing, and actually, they were even doing this before the strike.
Wow.
But one of the things they wanted to do, even just like for extras, they were telling people, "I'll tell you what, we're going to pay you a full day's pay of extra work." Which, and once again, it varies a little bit, but it's like under $200, and we're going to scan your body, and then and by the way, when I threw out that number, it can vary depending on how many hours you work. Are you working 16 hours, golden time? Are you
Wow.
working 8 hours? But for like an 8 hour day, it's a little bit less, but it's in that ballpark. Um, they want to do a scan and then use your image forever. And they'll use you as an extra forever for the rest of your life, which could cut you out of potentially working on a show. Maybe there's a
Exactly.
show and you are so clearly seen as an extra that you're not going to be able to audition for the show. Or maybe they don't have to hire as many people because they have all these AI generated images. So they don't need to fill an entire stadium with humans, which they typically don't anyway anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, there are some great things with AI. I use AI for writing sometimes or asking questions about, how to fix something,
Hmm. It's good for
and
that. Yeah.
it can be great for that, but it's like any other tool, you got to be really careful. I mean, I saw this ad. It was frightening. It was, I don't know if you know much about training films. There's something, they're called corporate educational or training films. It's the same thing. And companies will hire actors and they will teach people how to, build diesel engines or how to lay cable under the ocean. And
Hmm.
it could be all kinds of different things. Or doctors how to um, exam people in a better way and how to talk to the patients afterwards. These are
Hmm.
all training films, teaching people how to do things. And there was this ad, and there are companies out there. You can hire an AI image that can talk. You just feed the script in, and they look like a person.
Hmm.
And
Avatars. Yeah.
yeah, and so we're not getting hired for those things. That's pretty frightening. That is pretty frightening to me. I've done hundreds of these training films, and to think that they can just hire or pay a company and use this service, that's going to be cutting out a lot of work for people.
Okay. So
But
what is?
yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, look, and I know I'm kind of sounding this doom and gloom stuff. Look, if you're interested in acting, get out there and do it. Just go out there and get started. Learn as much as you can. If you can do local theater, that's a
Hmm.
great way to get some experience. And even if you're not able to land the role for this particular play, see if you can do stage work. See if you can do lighting, just to be around, watch other actors, see how the crew works, see how the lighting works, listen to the director. There is so much that you can learn, even if you're not on stage. But the important thing is, I know there are plenty of people out there who just dream about things and they think about things and they talk about how they want to do this stuff and they never, never do it. And I think what it really comes down is just not having the courage to do it, which I understand. But if you're interested, get out there and do it. The worst thing that can happen is that nothing happens for you. And that's okay. I knew, like, before I went to New York, I was I wouldn't have been happy, but I was okay if I went up to New York and I couldn't get representation and I couldn't get any work in New York. I could live with that. What I couldn't live with was not trying. And so it's just really essential if you're out there. And you might find, and I had some people, not that many, but I had some people tell me, "Oh, Aaron, don't bother going to New York. You work in a small market. They have millions of people who go there already. They don't need somebody like, and nothing personal, but they don't need anybody like you, and you're going to get your heart broken."
Mhm.
And what I learned is that there are a lot of people out there who are fearful themselves, and they try to prevent other people from having any kind of success because they don't have the courage to do it themselves. So anytime somebody is talking to you in that way, filter everything that you hear. And if there's something that's worthwhile, something that's helpful to you, listen to, and do it. But you got to be careful with what people say to you.
This is awesome. Thank you so much,
My
Aaron, for being
pleasure.
on the program. One final question is: so, what's next in your career? Like, what are you most excited about?
Who knows? I never know from day to day what's going to happen. So I don't know. I'm just trying to live my life in a really good way, in a healthy way, happy way. Like I was saying before, just surrounding myself with people I love and care about, and helping other people. Like I spent a lot of time putting howtoactamodel.com up. And it took a couple of years. And I didn't actually do the work. I hired somebody, but it took a long time. And just sharing information. And that's something that I do spend a lot of time with. And, at least for now, I plan on continuing to do that for a while.
Wow, this interview was great. A lot of wealth of information for up and coming actors, actresses. This is amazing. Thank you so much. Really
Hey,
appreciate it.
thanks for asking me. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. I'm going to put all
Yeah.
the information, even leading to your website, everything down below, everything needing to lead to Aaron Michael Marcus and everything that you need to know. Um, so, yeah, everyone, that just proves that your success is not just reserved for those born into opportunity, but it's built through persistence, adaptability, and a willingness to learn. Love this. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much, Aaron.
Hey,
So
Chris.
wait right there. We're going to end the stream, everyone. Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. I tell you, I love your questions. You ask me questions nobody else has ever asked me before. So
I like to deep dive, and
yeah,
also
yeah, you got me a little nervous there. I'm thinking, oh, I better come up with an answer really fast because
I know it's like I want people to come and say, hey, Chris does a good interview. Okay, I want to do the interview with him too. I want to bring people to me. Get my, you know what I mean.
sure. Hey, yeah. So do you have any idea when this is going to be going out?
When would you like it?
Doesn't matter. Whenever.
I
Look,
know.
I want you to take your time, and I want
Yep.
you to make sure that you love it, and so do
Yep.
whatever editing you need to do. So yeah, just shoot me an email. Just let me know when it's going to be available for
The
people.
the only part the only I don't think there's anything needing to be edited except everything before this part when I went like this
Yeah,
because we have
yeah, thank you. Yeah, do not want
no
political
no
US Canadian conversations going
totally.
on here. All right,
Okay.
man. See you,
Thank you,
Chris.
everyone. Just wait
Bye.
1 second. I got to make sure this works. Here we go.